viewers, my name's Cara. You're watching my personal channel, cutewitch772. This week, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do for the video. I didn't have anything pre-done. I wanted to do something new. And Rich reminded me that we were talking this past week, that is Rich from PaganPerspective, Witch2005, reminded me that last week or so we were talking about how Angelo from PaganPerspective had done a sort of a 10-question, it's not really a challenge, but Rich called it a challenge at first, a video answering 10 questions that every tarot reader must answer. So Rich just posted his video this week and reminded me that I wanted to do it as well, so that's what I'm going to do this week. Now I will link to Rich's video in the description. Rich's video links to Angelo's video. Angelo's video links to a video on Katie Flowers' channel, which is where he saw the 10 questions being answered. Katie's links to the person who she had seen done it in her video description, but also a lot of people in the comments on Katie's video are posting links to where they have answered the questions as well. So if you do a video or a blog post or anything like that answering these questions, you can leave them in the comments of this video so other people can find them as well. The questions actually come from Left Hand Tarot, from James Bowles at Left Hand Tarot. It's 10 questions. They're meant to be just kind of enlightening as to how each different reader works and how they look at themselves, and this is meant to be useful for people who are looking for a tarot reader. These are the kinds of things that you want to be asking of a tarot reader, or asking of yourself if you are a tarot reader. If you're looking for someone to read the cards for you and you're trying to figure out who's the best for you, these are some of the questions that you may want to ask. I love things like this, so I just first of all want to say thank you, James, for creating this. I read the blog post, so I saw your inspiration for how you decided to make this, and I just love things like this. I love self-analysis, and I love just getting to talk about things in a way that maybe we don't necessarily think of those things ourselves, so we have this list that you provided. It's perfect. So there's 10 questions. The first question, were you mentored or were you self-taught? I am by and large self-taught, which is actually really funny because I grew up with my mom being the resident tarot reader of like everyone I knew, and she would read for all of her friends, and just that's where I was really exposed to it, but I never sat down and asked her to teach me. And really over the years I've only asked her little questions here and there about how she might do something compared to how someone else does something, but I've never sat down and like had my mom mentor me or teach me at all, because she's a tarot reader and I first got started with oracle cards, and I felt like tarot was this system that had a lot more specific meanings in it, and it was something that didn't come very easily to me at the time, whereas I really resonated with this deck of oracle cards that she had gifted me. So I first began reading the Fairy Ring Oracle, and that is still to this day the deck that I am most comfortable with. So that's probably the biggest reason why I didn't really seek out a mentor among my mother and her friends who read tarot, because I felt like I was doing a really different thing. So I just kind of self-taught, and that deck is a lot about knowing the stories of the characters within the cards, and that's where the meaning comes from. So it was just a very different kind of teaching for me. And then over the years, as I have started to learn tarot, I have self-taught through reading books that were passed down to me from my mom, and I haven't even really, like Rich was mentioning, he listens to a lot of tarot podcasts. I don't do that generally, just because I don't listen to a lot of podcasts in general. It's not that I don't like that method. I think that's a really cool thing. That's not how I choose to spend my time when I do. I much prefer to read books, or I will look up articles online to learn different things. But mostly what's happened is I just kind of go about my thing, doing my thing, and then if a question comes up that I'm like, oh wait, how does this work? Then I'll look up the answer to that specific question. It was never really something that I kind of sat down and learned beginning to end. So there have been people over the years who have given me tidbits of advice here and there, bidden or unbidden, and there are definitely now friends that I will go to ask their opinion on certain things, but there was never a specific mentorship quality. So I consider myself self-taught. Number 2, are you a psychic or a tarot reader? So this is showing the difference between someone who uses psychic abilities within their readings versus someone who simply looks at the cards. So even though I do not identify as a psychic, because I think that the word psychic makes us think of a lot of different things, such as telekinesis, telepathy, all of those kinds of like psychic powers that we think of. I think that's what the word kind of evokes in a lot of people. So I don't call myself a psychic, certainly. Also because I think that word really is used a lot to describe predictive psychic ability of like when someone is psychic, they can tell you what's about to happen in the future, and that's not something that I do whatsoever. But when you think about psychic abilities as just being things like using your intuition, your connections with guides, things like that, and bringing them into your reading of the cards in front of you, when you look at it that way, I'm a little bit of both. I definitely look at what the cards are saying, what the symbolism is of those cards, because, for example, if I've got 3 cards in front of me and I give the reading, if I had a different 3 cards in front of me, they might be touching on the same issue because they're meant to be a message for the same person. So the message that they need to get is going to come through no matter what the cards are. But the specific way that that happens could be very different depending on what cards are in front of me. So I am looking at the cards and what's in that symbolism, but I am also relying a little bit on intuition, especially when I read the tarot. I don't necessarily have memorized what each minor arcana card typically means within the traditional tarot system, so I'm drawing from what I know of different things and my intuition and what's coming through to combine together. So I identify as a tarot reader, but what this question is asking about whether you just read the cards or if you're employing some, what it refers to as psychic abilities, I do bring in some intuition and other things like that. That's very important to what I do. Number 3, are your predictions accurate, and is accuracy important to you? The further description in the blog post that asked these questions says, let's ask the loaded question. Does the reader claim to offer accurate predictions? And does the reader care about accuracy? I don't claim to offer accurate predictions. So there's that. I like how Katie put it in her video where she said that she does not consider her readings predictive. I like that as an adjective. I also do not consider myself a predictive reader. I typically read online for people through email, and I've only done a couple readings in person, but when I do, I make it a point not to interview you about what's going on in your life. I might ask you, what do you want to focus on in this reading? So if you want to know about what this says about your career or what's going on in your personal relationships, I like to know that as opposed to if you just want a general reading and see what comes through. But I don't sit there and ask, are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? Do you have pets? What do you know? Anything like that. I don't want to find out things about you before I read. If I'm reading for a friend, obviously I might know some things about them, but I'm not using that. I'm not cold reading who you are sitting in front of me. And so that's really easy online because you're not there. I just know what you've told me. And I really just go from, like I said, what the cards bring up and what my intuition tells me about that and what the symbolism says. But even within that, I don't consider my readings predictive because I'm not trying to predict what's going to happen, when your baby's going to be born, if you're going to be married in the next 5 years, whatever, anything like that. That's not what I do within my readings. And I have a very good friend who has been going to a tarot reader for years and years who does do those predictive readings, and my friend says that they are always very accurate. So I think that that's something that some people can do, and if you say that you can do it, you better be able to do it. I don't believe that that's something that comes just from the cards. I think that that is a separate gift that that reader has that she incorporates. And that is not something that I offer. And this ties into the next question, which is there anything you can't predict in a reading? Some of the examples given are lottery numbers, natural disaster, terrorist attacks, missing children, things like that. That's not the kind of thing that I do with my readings. The things that I do within my readings, I consider them a spiritual tool, so it tends to be more like I have questions about where my life is headed right now, I have questions about where my spiritual path is headed right now, and I'm looking for some insight about that. I don't predict natural disasters, lottery numbers, when your child is going to be born, anything like that. And while on the one hand, some people will say, it's not that I think I can't, it's that I won't, so I definitely resonate with that. I won't predict those kinds of things, but more than that, it's something that I don't feel is part of the system of tarot. That's not something that I feel these tools, as spiritual tools, can really do. So in a way, I feel like it's accurate to say that I can't do that because that's not what the system of the tools that I'm using is really for. And I think that's important to tell people, especially if you're looking to me as a reader, that I don't believe that kind of thing is possible within the system that we're looking at. So if you're looking for that kind of prediction, you're going to want to go to someone who really puts themselves out there as a predictive psychic. That's where I think of the word psychic as applying. and that's just not something I do. Number 5, do you use only tarot or are you multidisciplinary? This is about whether you use only tarot cards or whether you branch into oracle, numerology, astrology, angel communication, spirit mediumship, tea leaves, bones, etc. A lot of people have been answering this as in, do you offer anything other than tarot? But I think what the question is actually getting at within a single tarot reading, within an actual session of whatever it is we're doing, are we only using the tarot cards? Or are there other systems that we bring in? For example, I have a friend and they like to do a 1-card tarot card draw with a 1 rune draw and combine those. So this would be an example to me of being a multidisciplinary reader if you're reading something that incorporates tarot and oracle together, or if you're doing a tarot card reading with some crystal reading thrown in, stuff like that. I would consider myself multidisciplinary in the sense that I do read other things, but I have not yet done any readings for other people that mix those disciplines together within one reading. So I do offer tarot or oracle readings through my blog, and there have been some times where when I finish a reading, I will get the urge to use one of my other decks to do a clarifying spread on something, or just a single card from a different deck. So like if I'm doing a tarot reading and all of a sudden at the end I feel like I really want to pull a Celtic messages card for this person, I will do that, and then I'll send the reading and I'll say, at the end of your reading I got the impression that I wanted to do this, but it's not something that you initially asked for, so I'd like to ask your permission. Do you want to see what that other thing was that I was called to pull for you? And then that person has the ability to say yes or no, because you don't always want to hear the extra stuff that you didn't sign up for, you know, and I've had people give me messages that I wasn't willing to hear at the time, so I really like to ask for permission on that kind of thing. But other than that, I have not yet incorporated the other disciplines that I use into the readings, tarot or oracle, that I offer. When I feel like I've really developed a taste for something, I would definitely love to offer that kind of thing. But then the other aspect of that, because James listed things like numerology, astrology, angel guidance, things like that, it also goes back to the idea of those of us who use our intuition with our readings, and we're not just reading the tarot, but it's also intuition. I recently met someone online who does a lot of angel communication within their work, and they can just sit down and give you angel readings just through connecting with the angels and spirit and your guides and things like that. They don't need to have cards involved. However, some of these people do actually use the cards, or they might use angel cards or fairy cards or whatever it may be, as well as channel information from your guides and your ancestors and whoever else it may be. So that to me is also an interdisciplinary thing. And especially because there was the note about astrology and numerology, I do incorporate some of that into some of my readings. Perfect example is the 13 Moons spread that I actually put on my blog as an offering over a year ago. I had only really ever played with it for myself maybe once, and I just thought it's a really cool option as a companion to the solar wheel spread that I offer that's looking at the solar cycle of the year. I wanted to offer a lunar cycle of the year, so that's what I did. And no one ever purchased those readings until just this year. Someone got it. I sat down to do it, and I thought I was just going to be reading the cards, but no. Intuition and everything else had something else planned. So I realized that I really was incorporating a lot of astrology into that as well. Because it was about the lunar cycle, I was bringing in, okay, well this month it's the full moon in Cancer, and so we're looking at more water qualities and Cancerian qualities. So I was really bringing in a lot of other stuff, and that made me realize that I have to go back and look at how I'm listing all my readings and what I'm really offering within them, because I don't currently describe all of that is going into these readings, and I'm not taking that into account, mostly because in this case I had never done this reading for other people before, and I had no idea what would actually come through when it came down to it. And I do love numerology, so I do employ a little bit of numerology when I read, especially since, like I said, I don't necessarily read just the traditional tarot meanings. I also bring in any other meaning that is within my background of knowledge, and numerology is part of that. So I will look at the numerology of the cards as well. But I'm not doing a numerology reading, it's just knowledge that I have of the meanings of numbers through numerology that might inform my interpretation of a card. So I guess you could still call me a multidisciplinary reader. Very good question. Very good question. Number 6, is the message in the cards or in your head? I think I've answered this throughout. I think it's a little bit of both. I definitely read the message and the symbols as it is shown in the cards that are coming up, but there is also the quality of using intuition and interpreting those cards. And I especially liked that Angelo in his video went into a little bit of that, where it's kind of half and half. On the one hand, you're looking at the cards in front of you. If you didn't need to look at the cards in front of you, you wouldn't use them. You would just be giving an intuitive reading out of, channeling guides or whoever it is. Some people do that. So those of us who are using cards, I think it is partially the cards that are in front of you. And for me personally, I read multiple different decks. So if I were to pull out the same cards from a couple different decks, I read based on the symbolism of that deck and whatever the artwork is and the cultural significance within that deck. So I have a couple decks that are Celtic based, so the symbolism within them is meant to be read from the point of view of that cultural background. I have the Goddess Tarot, where meanings are definitely more attached to goddesses, etc. And likewise, if I have 3 cards in front of me, right, there's the cards, but then Rich comes and sits down and looks at the same 3 cards, and then Angelo sits down, reads the same 3 cards, and Katie and James and whoever, if we're all looking at the same 3 cards, our messages and our readings of those cards are still going to be different because you're looking at it through 5 different lenses, right? The interpretation that we have is going to color the message that comes through, even from the same 3 cards. But then you toss those aside, you give us 3 new cards, there's all new things. So it is partly the cards, but also partly the reader. And that's why you can get readings from so many different readers and find the ones that resonate most with you, or just have fun getting readings from as many different points of view as you can, because everyone is always going to be reading through their own lens. And that's also why this kind of thing is important, for you to understand who the reader is that you're going to. Number 7, are you a priest or a fortune teller? And what this is getting at is whether the reader reads tarot through a spiritual or religious lens, through that kind of background, or whether you're kind of a secular tarot or like fortune teller reader. I do identify as a priestess just within my spiritual path. I don't necessarily see tarot as being a specific duty or part of my work as a priestess necessarily, but it is definitely a way of priestessing for me because it's a service that I offer, and it's one way of using my skills that I've developed and intuition and sometimes advice, whatever. It's a way of offering my energy as the lens through which you can receive a message. So it is a form of priestessing to me. But even without that title, I would consider myself a religious or spiritual based reader. That's what I offer. That's how I offer these, is as spiritually based readings. So I think it's important to know that I can read for anyone of any spiritual or religious background as long as they know where I'm coming from, that I am reading it as a pagan, as a neo-pagan, as a witch. And so I am talking about goddesses. I'm talking about astrology sometimes. I'm talking about myths and legends and folklore and cultural significance and meanings and information that I have picked up through my studies along my path. Whereas like my mom is a Christian spiritualist, so if you are looking at it from more, you want the spiritual aspect but you'd really like a Christian-based reading, you might go to someone like Rich, who's a Christo-pagan, or my mother, who is Christian. And there are plenty of readers of all different backgrounds like that. So I think that's something important to know too. So I am coming from that religious and spiritual background when I do it, and I consider it a spiritual offering. Number 8, are you a fixer or a looker? Like I said, I watched Rich's video, Angelo's video, and Katie's video before I got ready to do mine, and I thought it was interesting that all of them had sort of a different take on how this question can be read. And also Katie was talking about another person's video that they had watched and how that person interpreted it. So this could be another aspect of where it's a bit of both, but kind of going back to the asking for permission before you do things thing. Angelo talked about this in his video, where you're primarily beginning it as a looking. You're looking at the problems, right? Probably you're coming to a reading because you have a problem that you want to fix, or there's something in your life that you want to look for solutions for. You've got an issue that you want to look for solutions. But we're looking, right? We're starting by looking at the problem, and then you can go into whether or not you want to find a solution or a way to fix that problem within the reading. I definitely don't come at my readings with the intent to fix people's problems. That's not why I offer this, and that's not ever my goal. I'm not looking to find problems that people have to fix them. I don't see that as the work. I see the work as looking at the problem, figuring out what the root of it is, looking at what your obstacles may be, your strengths and weaknesses, whatever it may be with the spread that we're looking at, and using that information to suggest ways that you can progress from there. But the fixing part of it is really up to you. So a reading may be presenting possible solutions and paths that you can take. But my job is not to sit there and fix your life. There are readings where I will suggest things, especially if the cards are really coming up over and over and the message is, repetitive, that like this is the kind of thing that needs to be worked on. I will point that out to you just in case you didn't pick it up throughout the reading. At the end, I always give an overview and I'll say, you got a lot of cards about this, or you got a lot of cards in this suit. So remember this might be more focusing on this aspect. So I look at that overview. So I might suggest along the way, you've gotten a lot of cards that are about this, so you may want to try doing some work around XYZ, but actually deciding to take that and do something with it to fix your issue of whatever it may be is your work. So it's a little bit of both, but it's definitely, I'm primarily a looker and a mirror is really how I think of it as well, is mirroring back to you the problem that maybe you already suspect but you need an outside view of, or maybe that you haven't seen within yourself. And then it can lead to solutions from there, but that's not really my job. We're almost done. We've got 2 questions left. I know I talked longer than I even thought I would, and we should have just expected that at this point. Number 9, do you read for free or for a fee? I do read for a fee. It is a paid-for service that you can look on my blog to find my offerings. I do like to offer a sliding scale because I believe that if there are anyone who want to support me but maybe don't want to at this time invest in a more in-depth, longer time commitment involved reading, I like to offer some things on the lower end of the scale so that you can get something really simple. But a lot of the times people don't want something really super simple, so people who are looking for readings from me tend to invest in the higher ones. And there's a lot involved in them, as I said. I'm actually going to go look through and make sure that I'm taking into account all of those other disciplines that I'm bringing in, because I was talking to Rich about this the past week when I realized, like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that I packed into these 13 Moons readings that I didn't expect to put in there, And so I was talking to Rich about how, in my head, this is what readers do. And because I don't really go to other readers and I don't sample a variety of how other people read, this was just my impression, is that everybody's kind of putting in the same amount of effort, only to find that that's not the case. And not that there's anything wrong with that. Like we're saying, there might be people who are more just read the cards without bringing in any intuition. That's a valid way of doing it. And there may be people who are strictly the fortune teller. That's fine, as long as you know that's what you're getting into. But realizing that there really is a very large spectrum of what is offered here, and I am giving more than I thought, in a way, if that makes sense. So I want to go back and look at everything, and I may be offering some free readings in the future, especially if I come across anything that I'm offering that I think, I don't really know. How much do I put into this reading? So I might look for some people to be kind of testers for me and let me give you a reading and have you give me feedback so that I can kind of see what exactly all am I putting into this, and that'll help to inform me about how I should be presenting that to the public, because I didn't say that in the 13 Moons reading that I was going to be giving you a lesson plan for your entire next year based on the lunar cycle, but that's what the last person basically got from me, so, So I may be doing free readings as specialty offerings over time. Right now I do not have any of those going on. I read for free for my friends if we're out somewhere. I carry my oracle deck in my bag, and if we're out somewhere and it comes up and I just want to do a reading for someone, I don't charge for that. I have also done audience readings a couple of times in the past on my channel. There's at least one that I remember. Sometimes I just get the urge to do a reading for anybody who's watching the video, or like my entire collective audience on YouTube, and I have done that, where I've pulled like a past, present, future card for anyone watching within my audience, and that's meant to be for everyone. Some little guidance for everyone. But for the most part, yes, my readings are online. And I loved what Katie said about it in her videos. Maybe I'll just link you to Rich, Angelo, and Katie's videos in my description because I watched all of them. I loved what Katie said about how she offers readings through her Etsy and that it's really nice to be able to offer paid readings because that enables us to be able to focus time on those things instead of having to only do it in our free time where we might not be able to commit as much to it because we're doing something else during the day for work. And I really resonate with that because I am doing all of this kind of stuff full time now. So I really appreciated that insight that she had as to why it is so nice to be able to offer that. And the final question, number 10, is a little bit similar to number 4 where we answered, is there anything we can't predict in a reading? This one is there anything that you won't predict in a reading? For me, it's along the same lines. I don't want to, I'm not interested in predicting any very specific things, like which month will this happen? Which person will I marry? Should I break up with this person or not? I don't want to tell you those things. I'm not going to tell you those things. All I can do is do a reading for you and we can look at this is what the symbols are suggesting. This is the energy that's coming up. I don't know what decks people are reading, but nowhere in any of my decks does it tell me specific dates, specific times, specific names. So all I can do is kind of look at some different paths that you have going on in your life and figuring out, the outcome of this path seems to be positive. The outcome of this path seems to be a little more work, and just kind of give that to you and let you do with it as you will. But I won't read anything super specific like that. I won't predict natural disasters, the location of missing children, anything like that. That's just not what I do. That's not the service that I offer. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you, James, for coming up with these questions. Thank you, Katie and Angelo and Rich and every other person who has done these questions. I encourage you, if you are a tarot reader, to answer these questions as well, or to ask them of yourself at the very least. Post them on a blog, do a video if you have a channel, whatever it is, wherever you're offering your readings. This is kind of a really nice thing to have for the people who are trying to determine whether you would be a good fit for them as a reader. And this is the kind of thing that I like to be really forthcoming about, and I like to say, as a teacher, I'm like this, and if that resonates with you, you might be a good match with me. If not, you may want to seek things elsewhere. So I love that this set of questions was just available for all of us to answer. So thank you everyone in the path of it leading to me so that I could do this, and thank you all for watching. Another fun thing related to my readings is that I am redoing my rewards that I offer for my Patreon sponsors on patreon.com/cutewitch772. You can pledge to support my videos there, and some of the rewards are getting changed, and I will be offering tarot readings as a reward to some of the people who pledge. So you can find links to that and my Etsy shop and my readings and all kinds of things in the description of my videos. And you can subscribe to this channel and click on the notification bell to make sure that you're getting notifications into your box from me so that you always know what's going on here. And I will see you next time. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.